Facebook, good morning. How are we? We're just going to adjust that a little bit. There we go. Good to see you. Today we are going to talk about something that, as a trading coach, I have to deal with quite a bit, and something that if you can work on, it's going to make a big difference to your trading. So today's live is about, well, the subject is, it's not about perfection, it is about progress. So I see this a lot. I see traders talking about two things in particular, and we're going to address those two things first, which are the perfect trade and the perfect setup. What we're going to do, once we have discussed that, then we're going to talk about how you focus on a progressive scenario rather than a result scenario, and actually then the results will follow. So yeah, the two key points here are that I hear traders say, look, I've just had the perfect trade, or it feels like they've had the perfect trade. And invariably what this means is they've placed a trade, and once they're in the trade, they've forgotten about whether or not the process was correct or not. They're now focused on the result. So they're looking at it from the result. And then what happens is, let's say they've got a target 30, 40 points away from where they are. So price comes up. Now, in the worst case scenario, they haven't got a plan to exit. They just reach a certain point, or price gets to a point where emotionally they're in that trade and they want to take profit. They take profit at a certain point, so they get out of the trade, and then the trade goes the other way. Or, better still, they've used a moving average, they've used a support and resistance level, they've used a predetermined risk to reward, and they've had a level where they've said, if price reaches that level, I'm going to get out. It reaches that level, they get out either with a limit order or following their plan. So they get out of the trade, and then the trade goes the other way. And what that does is it makes them feel like they've had the perfect trade or the perfect result. Because what has happened is price has reached their target, it's reached their level, and then it's gone the other way. And the challenge with that is, if they feel like they've had the perfect trade, or they somehow feel as though they've got the trade more right than normal, that creates almost a sense that they're doing something even more important, when in fact, yes, they've had a predetermined target. Yes, there could be a logical reason to get out of that trade at that point. But in essence, the fact that the price hit that level and then moved in the other direction is essentially luck. Because it could easily have got close to their target and fallen away, or it could have hit their target, as I'm sure a lot of you listening to this will have had, those of you that have traded, is it hits the target and then goes through, and it feels as though you've left profit on the table. So the number one thing here is it's about using specific limits on your trade, targets that you have tested and you know that work over a longer period of time, that will allow your winning trades and your results to progress. It's not about the perfect trade. Or if you happen to have a trade that hits its target and then falls away, either as a long or a short, don't think that you've done anything more special because you simply got out of the trade and it happened to then go the other way. So that's perfect results or perfect trades. Another one I hear a lot about, another one that I work very closely with people on, is when they feel as though they've got a perfect setup. So this is before they actually place the trade, but they feel as though they've got a perfect setup. And often this is because all of the criteria for their strategy they can tick off. They've been tracking that market for a while. I see this a lot, especially when traders are trading at level, so they're trading reversal positions. And what happens is they've watched price come into this level. The level is a really, really clear resistance level or a really clear support level. And the challenge in that scenario is, what happens is, very often there is a direct correlation between how that trader thinks, or how good a setup that trader thinks, i.e. how clean that setup is, how good the chart looks, how good the level is, and their then false expectation of the likelihood of that trade being a winner. Now, yes, sometimes that will be, but I've had trades, and I'm sure those of you that are listening, where the setup looks really good, it's really clean, it meets all your criteria, and then the trade ends up being a loser. And the challenge there is the trader can feel more demoralized because they've created a higher false expectation in their mind, because they've almost deemed the setup to be perfect. So it's really, really important that when you're placing a trade, not to get overly excited or not to get overly optimistic just because the setup looks good. It's just one setup within the next 50, within the next 100, within the next 200. So bear that in mind. So they're the two major problems I see. I see people looking for or thinking they've had the perfect result on one trade, or that they've got the perfect setup. And actually what you should be focusing on, and this is why we're talking about progress, is you should be focusing on progress and focusing on your process. So the three key things to do is, number one, think about your trading over the long term and have a long-term perspective. And then keep and make sure that you track as much data about what you're doing as possible. So get all the data on the trade, all the different criteria that we use. Make sure that you are assessing your discipline. So are you getting more disciplined in your approach? Are you getting more systematic in your analysis? Are you then, over a period of time, not over a week, not over a month, but over a longer period of time, starting to see the results show up in your trading? If they're not, then at least if you're tracking your progress and tracking all these different variables, then you can get somebody to have a look. But the challenge is a lot of the time somebody will come to me and say that they're not getting the results they want, but what they're not doing is they're not tracking their progress, and they're not journaling, and they're not logging their trades, which makes it much harder for me to then actually be able to see where they're going wrong. So one of the first things I'll do with anybody that's working with me closely in our trading room is I will make sure that they're following our process. And that's not because our process is the only process that works, but they're following our process so there's something very clear to track. And then I'll make sure they're logging all the data sets, so then I can see where they're potentially going wrong. And I can make tweaks to what they're doing, and those tweaks will actually have a significant impact on their trading long term, rather than what most traders do is chop and change what they're doing because their emotions are all over the place and they've not really bought in to the system and strategy that they're trading. So remember, it's not about perfection, it's about progress. But more importantly than that, it's about tracking and measuring your progress. Good. So that's all I've got for you today. Remember, if you are listening to this and you are not a member of TSC, and you're not a member of Trader Support Club, head to our website, tradersupportclub.com, click on any of the blue Start Right Now buttons and join our free membership. On our free membership, you get access to quarterly webinars and workshops with me. You can access my audiobook, Lessons from a Trading Room, and a whole host of free material. And also, jump on there because we are filling up for our March Kickstart. We started our Jan Kickstart yesterday. We're filling up for our March Kickstart. So if you want to go and work with myself and one of my team, Kerry, for a whole 28 days where we're coaching you and teaching our system, then get on the free membership, and all the details of the Kickstart are there as well. All right, trade safe, and I'll catch up with you again very soon.